This is the new Crispi Pro. It's twice the price of the Crispi Portable and offers some upgrades, an increased capacity, and of course, a few frustrations as well. I spent the last week testing it out, and I've got the answers to some of the most frequently asked questions, including how it compares to the original Crispi and which one you should buy. Plus, I'll show you everything I've cooked in it, including a couple of recipes from the Ninja recipe book. So if you're thinking of buying, keep watching for the most comprehensive review of this air fryer on YouTube. So first, before we go any further, two important things that you need to know. I bought and paid for both of these air fryers. And secondly, I'm in the UK, where both the Crispi and the Crispi Pro are slightly different to the US versions. And I'll talk about those differences when we come to them. So the main reason that people consider buying something from the Crispi range is because of concerns about chemicals in non-stick coatings. Both the Crispi models allow you to cook in a glass bowl, but you usually also need to use one of the supplied crisper plates, which have a PFAS-free nano-ceramic coating. Yes, you can buy a third-party stainless steel trivet to fit the glass bowls, but for reasons which I'll explain later in this video, Ninja have actually advised some customers not to use them in case they are a contributing factor to a rather serious problem which they've been having with some models. Many people who first see the Crispi or the Crispi Pro point out that they look a lot like halogen air fryers, which have been around for a long time and often cost a fraction of the price of these air fryers. But they aren't strictly the same. Generally, air fryers cook with a faster fan speed, which makes cooking quicker and gives a more crispy finish. But there is no denying that they do look very similar and broadly do the same thing. I'm actually planning a comparison video between a halogen air fryer and the Crispi, and if you want to see that, make sure that you've subscribed to the channel. So let's have a look at these two models side by side. The original Crispi Portable comes with two glass bowls, which are 1.4 litre and 3.8 litre. The bigger Crispi Pro comes with two bigger bowls, which are 2.3 litres and 5.7 litres. The bowls all have a plastic base, which can't be removed and which can be tricky and frustrating to get dry after washing. With the Crispi, the heating element sits directly on the smaller bowl and uses an adapter for the larger bowl. With the Crispi Pro, there's a modular base which can be inserted into the spine of the air fryer at different heights for the different bowls. The larger bowl goes on it in the bottom position, and the small bowl goes on it in the top position. And in theory, the 3.8 litre bowl, which can be bought separately or comes with the original Ninja Crispi, goes on it in the middle position. Except there is a problem. Here in the UK, the 3.8 litre bowls don't fit properly. You can fiddle around with it and eventually get it to slide awkwardly in place, but the legs are just a tiny bit too close together to fit the modular base, which is probably why this bowl has been discounted on the Ninja website so that they can clear old stock and make one that actually fits both the Portable and the Pro. And if you're wondering if the original Crispi Portable will fit on top of the large 5.7 litre bowl which comes with the Crispi Pro, the answer is no. And I think that's a very deliberate decision by Ninja, because if you could buy the larger bowl as a spare and use that with the cheaper Heatpod on it, that's exactly what everyone would do, and hardly anyone would buy the Crispi Pro. So another thing about the variable bowl sizes is that although the larger bowl that comes with the Crispi Pro gives you more volume in which to cook, it doesn't give you more surface area. All except the smallest bowl in this range use exactly the same size crisper plate. And there's currently no option to buy a rack to cook on 2 layers. So that limits the amount of some foods which you're able to cook or dehydrate in it. Next, let's look at the control panel. One of the frustrations with the Crispi Portable is its lack of temperature controls. although there are 4 settings, the only hint of the temperatures that these settings actually run at is a rather vague graph in the instruction book, which says keep warm runs at 70 Celsius and air fry is like a 200 Celsius oven. But on the Crispi Pro, there are at last temperature controls like you would get on a Ninja dual draw air fryer. Max crisp is fixed at 240 Celsius, but the other 6 settings, which are air fry, bake, prove, roast, dehydrate and re-crisp, have a range between 40 and 240 Celsius. And you can set the timer to between 1 minute and 12 hours. As well as time and temperature buttons, there's also a button on the far right which allows you to select the mode. However, this button doesn't actually exist on the US version. Instead, for reasons I don't fully understand, the US models have got a light, which would have been a really great addition on the UK models. So on to cooking, and not for the first time, there are some contradictory messages in the manual that comes with the Pro. In the instructions, it says preheating is not necessary with this model, but a few pages further on, they've published recipes which expressly say that you do need to preheat. Like all Ninja air fryers, you do need to toss or turn your food during cooking, which you do by removing the glass bowl from under the heating element by holding the handles. The handles actually don't get hot, and you can move the bowl without the aid of oven gloves. So I tried out a couple of recipes which came with the manual. The feta and spinach flatbread using flour and natural yogurt was very simple to prepare, and the results looked pretty good, but we weren't overly impressed with the taste and texture and probably wouldn't bother making it again. However, one of the reviews that I read mentioned the mini donuts which are in the recipe book, and I decided to give them a go. The donuts can be cooked 4 at a time, and although they started out looking more like cookies, they puffed up beautifully and tasted wonderful, warm out of the air fryer and dipped in sugar glaze. Now, when I had the Crispi, I was never that confident that baking would actually be much of a success because of the lack of clear temperatures. So because the donuts have been such a success in the Crispi Pro, I decided to make another batch of them and do half in the Crispi Pro and half in the Crispi. Now, although the UK version of the Crispi doesn't have a bake setting, Ninja told me that roast is the same but labelled differently. So with those 2 batches, I cooked one with the settings as prescribed in the recipe book in the Crispi Pro, and the other just on the roast setting in the Crispi. And this was the result. As I suspected, the Crispi was much harsher and overcooked the donuts. I also tried cheese on toast on the max crisp setting, which works like a hot grill with strong downward heat and a high fan, and I had good results with that. And I tested out the re-crisp function as well with some leftover macaroni cheese. The Crispi Pro did a great job of heating the food all the way through, as well as adding a crispy top. Definitely better than a microwave, and also faster than having to try and get your grill in an oven to temperature. When you're cooking with the Crispi Pro, you can pull the drawer out halfway to check on food. And one of the nice features is that unlike the Crispi, if you pause it like this halfway through cooking, it will resume automatically. The only small niggle is that at the start of cooking cycles, or when you put it back in after checking the food, the fans kick in super high powered and briefly throw everything around in the glass bowl, which is what happened when I put cheese on top of this pizza. Now, you may have seen in reels on Instagram or TikTok that some people have been cooking food using both the space under the crisper plate and the space on top of it. There's actually no mention or suggestion to do this in the manual, so I wanted to give it a go and see if it actually works well, or if people were doing it purely because it looked good on camera. Both the salmon and the potatoes that I cooked this way were cooked through at the end, but as I suspected, cooking food directly on the glass does limit the air circulation and therefore how crispy the food gets. And talking of which, I also put the large bowl to use roasting a whole chicken. Now, I've lost count of the amount of chickens that I've roasted in air fryers over the last 3 years for this channel, but it's got to be around 50. And in all of those cases, a 1.8 kilogram chicken at 180 Celsius usually takes about 45 minutes. But that is, of course, in a metal air fryer. And the big difference with cooking in a glass bowl is that the glass just doesn't get as hot as a metal drawer. So anything in contact with it also doesn't get as hot. I started my chicken upside down, and when I turned it after 40 minutes to crisp up the top, it was actually completely raw the other side. I put it back on to cook and found I kept having to add extra time. In the end, it took an hour and 10 minutes to cook, which, yes, is quicker than it would have been in the oven, but it's also about 25 minutes longer than it would have been in something like the Ninja dual drawer. But on the plus side, you remember those donuts that I made in the portable crispy earlier? Well, everyone was so hungry waiting for the chicken to cook that actually all of those were eaten without complaint, despite the fact they were overcooked. Now on to cleaning, which is one of the most important things to talk about. All the bowls, the crisper plates and the storage lids can be put in the dishwasher or washed in a sink. The heating element on the Pro is housed in the top of the base unit, and unlike the Crispi, which you end up looking at every time you cook it, the Pro's heating element is easy to forget about and slightly more awkward to clean. Now, technically, you're not supposed to take any part of your Ninja air fryer apart because it will void the warranty, but people do. And the screws in the metal cover over the heating element of the Crispi are clearly visible and accessible. On the Crispi Pro, they are hidden behind the spring frame, so it's impossible to access them. And another important thing, energy use. The Crispi Pro does use more power than other air fryers of a similar size. For instance, with the 2.3 litre bowl attached, it uses 10% more energy than the 4.3 litre drawer on the Crispi Turbo Tower Pro, which is PFAS free and a very similar price. Running the Crispi Pro for 20 minutes a day would cost you about £30 a year, while the Crispi would cost £26. Now there is one final and very important thing that you need to know about these models. They are built from toughened dishwasher safe glass, built to withstand thermal shock. But for reasons that we don't quite understand, some of them have shattered while being used. One possible cause could be that the way they have been cleaned, because if you clean glass with abrasive cleaning materials, it can cause microscopic damage to the surface, which weakens the glass. But from messages that I've seen in some forums, Ninja have also been telling some people not to use third-party racks or trivets in the Crispi in case they affect the heat distribution. Now, we're unlikely to ever know if that's a real problem or whether it's just them being cautious. So let's quickly run through the pros and cons of these two models. The Crispi is made to be portable and is really easy to store, but there's no temperature controls, and realistically, it's only good for 2 people. The Crispi Pro is better suited for cooking for a larger number and for baking, but the limited cooking surface area restricts its uses. It has more cooking functions and controls, but will probably need a permanent spot on the worktop. So I promised you an answer about which one of the two I would buy, and it does slightly depend on how many people you're cooking for and whether you need it to be portable. But if I could only have one, I would go for the Crispi Portable, because for me, the Pro is not enough of an upgrade to justify the big jump in price. And I also think the larger bowl is not quite as useful as it first appears. But let me know what you think in the comments. If you're interested in either of these two models, links to purchase and support this channel can be found in the description below and also via the QR codes which are appearing on the screen right now. And if you're still continuing your journey to find out more about non-toxic air fryers, I've got a video which is popping up on the screen right now.